Natalie Porter pressed her small hands against the glass of Sweet Dreams Bakery, her breath creating small clouds of fog on the window. Inside, the display glowed with warm light, illuminating rows of magnificent cakes, chocolate towers with glossy ganache, vanilla confections decorated with delicate sugar flowers, rainbow layers that seemed to defy gravity. Each one had candles arranged carefully on top, ready to mark another year of someone's life. She was 6 years old today. 6 years old, and there would be no cake. Her mother, Jessica, knelt beside her on the sidewalk, her worn gray t-shirt and faded jeans telling their own story. "I know, sweetie," she said softly, her voice thick with the exhaustion of working double shifts at the diner. "I'm so sorry. Maybe next year things will be better." "It's okay, Mama," Natalie said in her small voice, trying to be brave even though tears threatened to spill. "I understand. We have to pay for the apartment first." Jessica pulled her daughter close, fighting back her own tears. They'd been struggling ever since. Natalie's father had walked out 3 years ago. Jessica worked every hour she could, but it was never quite enough. This month had been especially hard. The car had broken down, and the repair had eaten up what little savings she'd managed to scrape together. There was nothing left for birthday celebrations. Neither of them noticed the man who'd stopped a few feet away watching them. Nathan Crawford was 32 years old and worth over $2 billion. He'd built his fortune in tech, creating a revolutionary app platform that had changed how people connected and shared content. He was known in business circles as brilliant, driven, and ruthlessly focused. He was also on his way to a birthday party. Not his own, his nephew's elaborate celebration at an exclusive venue across town. The kind of party where the decorations alone cost more than most people made in a month, where the entertainment was a private performance by a popular children's entertainer, where the cake was a custom creation that resembled a castle and cost $3,000. Nathan had been walking to his car, already running late, when he'd heard the little girl's words. "I had no cake on my birthday." Something about those words, spoken with such resigned sadness, made him stop. He watched as the mother tried to comfort her daughter, as the little girl in her faded pink shirt, clean but clearly worn, many times tried not to cry. He watched as they finally stood up and started to walk away, the girl taking one last longing look at the cakes in the window. Nathan made a decision. He walked quickly into the bakery, the bell above the door chiming cheerfully. The woman behind the counter smiled at him, recognizing him immediately. Everyone in this city knew Nathan Crawford. "Mr. Crawford, what can we do for you today?" "That cake," Nathan said, pointing to the largest, most elaborate cake in the window, a 3-tiered masterpiece, decorated with buttercream roses and delicate piping. "I need it right now. And I need candles, the number 6. The baker's eyes widened. "Sir, that cake is for a wedding tomorrow. It took us 3 days to make." Nathan pulled out his wallet and extracted a credit card. "I'll pay for that cake and a replacement for the wedding, whatever it costs. But I need this one right now." 5 minutes later, Nathan emerged from the bakery carrying a large box, moving as quickly as he could without jostling its precious contents. He spotted the mother and daughter half a block away, walking slowly, the little girl's head down. "Excuse me," he called out. "Wait, please!" Jessica turned, her hand instinctively tightening on Natalie's. She'd learned to be wary of strangers, especially well-dressed men in expensive suits who called out to her on the street. Nathan caught up to them, slightly out of breath. Up close, he could see the worry lines on the mother's face, the wariness in her eyes, the way she positioned herself protectively in front of her daughter. "I'm sorry to startle you," he said quickly. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I was behind you at the bakery and I heard what you said. About the birthday. About the cake." He held out the box. "This is for you." "For your birthday," he said, looking at Natalie. Natalie's eyes went huge. Jessica stared at him in disbelief. "I don't understand. We can't accept that. We don't even know you." "My name is Nathan Crawford, and you don't have to accept it as charity. Think of it as a birthday gift from a stranger who remembers what it's like when things are hard." Jessica studied his face, looking for the catch, the angle, the thing that would make this make sense. Rich men in expensive suits didn't just buy elaborate cakes for poor little girls on the street. "Why would you do this?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer, carrying a weight of memory. Because when I was 7, my birthday came right after my father left. My mother was working 3 jobs to keep us afloat. She forgot my birthday entirely. Not because she didn't care, but because she was exhausted and scared and trying so hard to keep us from drowning. A neighbor found out and brought over a small cake from the grocery store. It wasn't fancy. The frosting was kind of crooked, but it meant everything to me because someone had remembered. Someone had cared. He held out the box again. I can't fix everything. I can't solve your problems or make your struggles go away. But I can make sure this little girl has a birthday cake. Please, let me do this one thing. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Natalie looked up at her mother with such hope in her expression that Jessica couldn't have said no even if she'd wanted to. She nodded, unable to speak. What's your name, sweetheart? Nathan asked, crouching down to Natalie's level. Natalie, she whispered. I'm 6 today. 6 is a very important age. I think it deserves an important cake, don't you? He opened the box carefully, revealing the magnificent 3-tiered creation. Natalie gasped, and even Jessica made a soft sound of wonder. Is that really for me? Natalie asked. Really and truly. Happy birthday, Natalie. Nathan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. But you know what? A cake this big needs a proper celebration. Where do you live? Is it nearby? Jessica hesitated, but something in Nathan's manner, in the genuine kindness in his eyes, made her answer. We're about 6 blocks from here. The Riverside Apartments. Would you let me drive you? My car is just around the corner, and I'd like to help you carry the cake. I'd hate for it to get damaged after going to all this trouble. That's how Jessica and Natalie found themselves in Nathan. Crawford's sleek black car, though Nathan had insisted on putting Natalie in the back seat and buckling her in carefully, making sure she was safe. He drove slowly, carefully, treating his passengers with the same attention he'd give to royalty. When they arrived at the apartment building, Nathan parked and helped them carry the cake upstairs. Jessica's apartment was small, just 1 bedroom that she and Natalie shared. A tiny living room and a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, but it was clean and filled with signs of love. Natalie's drawings taped to the walls, library books stacked neatly on a shelf, a jar of wildflowers on the windowsill. Nathan set the cake box on the small kitchen table while Jessica cleared space, moving aside the simple dinner she'd been planning, sandwiches and fruit, the best she could afford. Do you have plates? Nathan asked. And a knife to cut the cake? As Jessica gathered supplies, Nathan looked around the apartment, really seeing it. The furniture was second-hand and worn. The single fan in the window worked overtime, against the summer heat since there was no air conditioning. The television was old and small, but there were also signs of fierce determination. The apartment was spotlessly clean. Natalie's few clothes were neatly folded, and there was a sense of dignity maintained despite overwhelming circumstances. He thought about his penthouse across town with its floor-to-ceiling, windows and designer furniture, most of which he barely noticed anymore. He thought about his nephew's birthday party, which he was now missing entirely. He'd sent a text to his sister explaining he had an emergency. He supposed this was an emergency of sorts, though not the kind anyone would expect. Can I use your restroom? He asked. While Jessica finished setting up, Nathan excused himself and made a phone call. When he returned, he had carefully arranged his expression to show nothing. They sang happy birthday to Natalie, her small voice joining in with her mother's and Nathan's deeper tones. When Natalie blew out the candles, she closed her eyes so tightly that her whole face scrunched up. What did you wish for? Nathan asked. She can't tell you, Jessica said quickly, or it won't come true. You're absolutely right. I apologize. Nathan smiled at Natalie. I hope you get your wish, whatever it was. They cut the cake, and it was every bit as delicious as it looked. Natalie ate her slice slowly, savoring every bite, her eyes closed in bliss. Jessica ate more slowly, still somewhat overwhelmed by the surreal turn her daughter's birthday had taken. Nathan ate his slice and talked with them, asking Natalie about school, about her favorite subjects, about what she liked to do. She told him about the library where she went after school while her mother worked, about the books she loved to read, about how she wanted to be a teacher someday so she could help. Other kids learned to love reading too. When it was time for him to leave, Nathan stood and shook Jessica's hand. Thank you for letting me share Natalie's birthday. It's been the best evening I've had in a long time. Thank you, Jessica said, her voice thick with emotion. You have no idea what this meant to us, to her. She'll remember this for the rest of her life. Nathan looked at Natalie, who had frosting on her chin and the biggest smile he'd ever seen. So will I, he said honestly. He left the apartment and went to his car, but he didn't drive away immediately. He sat there thinking about the mother and daughter upstairs, about their struggles and their resilience, about how they maintained love and dignity in the face of hardship. He thought about his own life, about the wealth he'd accumulated, about how he spent more on his car payments each month than they probably spent on rent. He made another phone call. David, it's Nathan. I need you to do something for me, quietly. The next morning, Jessica received a call from her landlord. Ms. Porter, I wanted to let you know that your rent for the next year has been paid in full. Anonymous donor. They also paid for repairs to be done on your apartment. We're going to install air conditioning and fix that leak in the bathroom you reported. Jessica's hands shook as she held the phone. I don't understand. Who would do that? They asked to remain anonymous. Just wanted you to know you're taken care of. A week later, Jessica found a letter in her mailbox. Inside was a job offer from one of Nathan's companies, a position in their customer service, department that offered better pay, better hours, and full benefits including health insurance. The letter noted that they'd received her application, which she'd never sent, and were impressed by her work history and wanted to offer her the position. A month after that, a scholarship fund was established at Natalie's school, providing resources for students from low-income families, supplies, tutoring, and enrichment programs. Natalie was one of the first recipients. Jessica suspected who was behind all of it, but she had no way to confirm it. Nathan Crawford had vanished from their lives as suddenly as he'd appeared. She tried to reach him through his company, but her messages went unanswered. What she didn't know was that Nathan had given strict instructions that she not be told about his involvement. He didn't want gratitude or recognition. He just wanted to help, but Nathan hadn't forgotten them. He checked in regularly, quietly, through intermediaries. He made sure Jessica's job was going well, that Natalie was thriving in school. He established a trust fund for Natalie's college education, to be revealed when she turned 18. Years passed. Jessica thrived in her new job and eventually got promoted. She was able to move to a better apartment, then eventually to a small house. Natalie excelled in school, her love of learning nurtured by teachers and programs that Nathan had funded anonymously. When Natalie was 16, she started volunteering at a youth center, helping younger kids with reading. She remembered being that little girl pressing her hands against the bakery window, and she wanted to make sure other kids didn't feel that same hopeless longing. One day, as she was leaving the youth center, a familiar car pulled up. Nathan Crawford stepped out, older now, with threads of silver in his hair, but with the same kind eyes. Natalie, he said, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Nathan Crawford, she said immediately. The cake man? Of course I remember you. I've looked for you over the years. Wanted to thank you, but I could never find you. I didn't want to be found. I didn't do it for thanks. I know, but I wanted you to know that birthday, that cake, that kindness, it changed everything. Not just because of what happened after, though I think we both know you did more than just buy a cake that night. Nathan looked uncomfortable. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. The rent payment, the job for my mom, the scholarship, the trust fund I found out about last year. It was all you, wasn't it? Nathan was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. Your mother was working so hard. You deserved a chance. I had the means to provide that chance. But why? You didn't owe us anything. Nathan thought about how to answer. Do you remember what you wished for that night? When you blew out your candles? Natalie smiled. I wished that my mom wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. That she wouldn't be so tired and sad all the time. I know, you told me. You weren't supposed to share your wish. But you were so happy, so full of cake and joy, that you whispered it to me before I left. And I thought, I have the power to grant that wish. So why wouldn't I? You could have just written a check and moved on. You didn't have to set up jobs and scholarships and trust funds. You didn't have to care about what happened to us. Nathan looked at this remarkable young woman, so different from the sad little girl at the bakery window, yet with the same kind eyes. I think I did have to care. Because once I saw you, once I heard your story, I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't pretend that my wealth existed in a vacuum, separate from the struggles of real people. You taught me something that night, Natalie. What's that? That being wealthy isn't about how much you have. It's about what you do with it. And the most meaningful thing I could do with my money wasn't buying another company, or another car, or another house. It was making sure a 6-year-old girl had a birthday, cake, and helping her mother build a stable life. Natalie stepped forward and hugged him. Thank you for everything, for seeing us, for caring, for changing our lives. Nathan hugged her back. This girl who'd taught him more about wealth and purpose than 1,000 business deals ever could. Thank you for letting me. And for becoming such an impressive young woman. Your mother must be very proud. She is. She talks about you sometimes, you know. She calls you our guardian angel. I'm no angel. Just a man who happened to be in the right place at the right time. No, Natalie said firmly. You were a man who chose to stop. Who chose to care? Who chose to act? Most people would have walked past us that night. You didn't. That was a choice. And it mattered. Nathan left that meeting with tears in his eyes. He'd built a business empire, revolutionized an industry, and earned billions of dollars. But nothing in his career had ever felt as meaningful as that single act of kindness on a random evening 10 years ago. He'd thought he was helping them. But they'd helped him just as much, maybe more. They'd reminded him why wealth mattered. Not for what it could buy for yourself, but for what it could do for others. Years later, when Natalie graduated from college with honors and began her career as a teacher, Nathan attended her graduation. He sat in the audience with Jessica, who'd become a friend over the years, and watched as Natalie accepted her diploma. In her graduation speech, Natalie talked about a birthday when she was 6, when a stranger had seen her sadness and chosen to do something about it. She talked about how that single act of kindness had rippled outward, changing not just that one day, but the entire trajectory of her life. I learned that day that we all have the power to change someone's life, she said to the assembled graduates. Maybe not with millions of dollars or elaborate gifts, but with attention, with care, with the simple choice to see someone else's pain and respond to it with compassion. She looked directly at Nathan. Someone did that for me, and now I want to spend my life doing that for others. That's what it means to be truly wealthy, not in money, but in the impact we have on each other's lives. As the audience applauded, Nathan felt Jessica squeeze his hand. You changed our lives, she whispered. You saved us. No, Nathan said, watching Natalie accept congratulations from her classmates. You saved me. You taught me what it all means. What it's all for! And he meant it. Because on that evening 10 years ago, when he'd heard a little girl say, I had no cake on my birthday, he'd been given a gift. The gift of seeing what really mattered. The gift of understanding that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts but in the lives you touch and the difference you make. A birthday cake had changed everything, not because of what it cost, but because of what it represented, someone seeing another person's need and choosing to respond with kindness. And that choice, that single moment of compassion, had rippled outward through the years, transforming multiple lives and reminding everyone involved that we're never too rich to care, never too busy to stop, and never too important to see the humanity in others. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply pay attention, to notice the sad little girl at the bakery window, to hear the quiet resignation in a mother's voice, to choose to act when action is needed. That's what Nathan had done. And in doing so, he'd learned the most valuable lesson of his life, that the best investment he'd ever made wasn't in stocks or companies or real estate, but in the simple act of buying a birthday cake for a stranger's child and caring enough to follow through.